Dianne.
Thank you. It's so nice to see you and talk to you. You look
Thank
great.
you. Thank you. Thank you for joining me today. It is such a pleasure to see you. And I am eager to get started because I want to know more about Dianne Sherratt Steimel. All right, so Dianne, tell us a little bit about your rich background and what led you to the television industry.
Well, the television industry is really, especially working at Chelmsford Telemedia, that's kind of the end of the line of a lot of careers that I've had. So when I was a kid, and you told me you were going to ask this later on, but
it's okay.
We'll do it,
Yes.
chronologically.
Yes.
And so when I was a kid, I was just obsessed with horses, and I read National Velvet, and I would tie a scarf around my waist and gallop around the house and pretend to be a horse, and I wanted to ride, and everybody rolled their eyes at me and they thought it was just ridiculous. But I persevered. I'm very good at persevering, and then I ended up getting riding lessons, and I was like, that's what I want to do. And so I went to Centenary College and majored in equine studies. And I was an equine professional for a long time. I taught riding lessons, I trained young horses, I showed show jumpers, I did a little bit of dressage for a very long time, long enough, I was in my 30s, that I was thinking it might be time to use a different part of my brain. And at that point, I was working at a horse facility in Manhattan, if you could believe it. It's called Chelsea Equestrian Center. It's no longer there. It was out by the Chelsea Piers. And the local news team wanted to come and see what we were about. And I looked at them, they interviewed me. I was on my horse. I kept my horse there at the time. And they did an interview with, the mic back and forth on the horse. And I thought, well, that just sounds like a lot of fun. I'm going to do that. Not knowing how, competitive the industry is, and that, it's really challenging to break in, especially not when you're in your mid-30s. Like, that's elderly as far as TV years go. But, I didn't know, so that was a good thing. And I was talking to other people. This is Manhattan, right? Everybody has big plans as to where they're going to go. So I spoke to a coworker, and she's like, oh, you should go to the Connecticut School of Broadcasting.
Oh,
so
yes.
I thought, okay, all right, I'll go to the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. I took my 8-week course, and I got a job. I was living in New Jersey at the time, and I got a job at this tiny little station in New Jersey as an anchor and reporter. And I had no idea that it's just not really done. Like, to get a job, you had to fly to the far corners of the country. But I was lucky. And so for, a while after that, that's what I did. I still was teaching riding. And then I ended up getting a job as a traffic reporter.
Today, our traffic reporter, Dianne Sherratt, is in the hot seat. She was very gracious enough to stay with us for the unveiling.
And I would get up at 3 in the morning, and I would report on the traffic, and then I would go home and I would ride the young horses. And I think for a long time, I was the only traffic reporter / horse trainer probably in the country. I don't know that there were any more. I don't know. And I did that for a long time. I had a great deal of fun. I ended up getting a job in Mississippi, and I was the host of a morning show, Good Morning Mississippi. And I had some significant culture shock in Mississippi.
Oh, how so?
I didn't like it at all.
Why is that, Dianne?
I'm from the Northeast, and what is the saying? Mississippi is 1 hour and 50 years behind the East Coast.
Oh,
it was just
very different.
Very different. And every day I was like, I hate it here. So I didn't last long, but I loved being the host of Good Morning Mississippi. That was a great time.
Looks like Mississippi colleges and universities are spending about $35.5 million a year to teach subjects that students should have learned in high school.
We're looking for a home for the squirrel.
I promised I wouldn't squeal, but I just might.
We're looking for a home for the squirrel.
Cute.
Typically, a squirrel of this age would be squealing and biting.
Yeah.
This squirrel has shown
there I go.
no signs at all of aggression.
Oh. I love how you use his little tail like a handle.
It's
Oh, he's
obviously,
got some real claws there.
it's obviously old enough to be on its own.
Uh-huh. And
It's
so
old enough to be
he
on its
decided
own.
he's on his own now. Exploring the studio, the kitty cat is looking at the squirrel saying, dude, where are you going? It's sugar-free. So
Sugar-free, just like myself, no artificial flavor.
it's diet cake.
That was a great time. And then I ended up working in Hagerstown, Maryland. Again, another morning show. I'm not a morning person. And here it's, 10 years of me getting up at like 3 a.m. I was not really liking that. But at that point, my now husband, he living in Massachusetts, Newburyport, he was like, can you come home? We'll get married. Just come home. We were doing this long distance. I was in New Jersey, I was in Mississippi, I was in Maryland, and he was in Massachusetts, and we were doing the whole driving thing. So I came up here to Newburyport, and then we got married, and I was like, usually the TV industry, you have to go where the job is. You don't decide where you're going to live and then find a job that way. But I did, and that's how I ended up at Chelmsford Telemedia.
Oh, and they're so lucky to have you. So lucky to have you.
That's what I tell people all the time.
As you should. As you should. Well, you do. You all do beautiful work, and it seems to be such a wonderful, supportive team.
It really is. We each have the thing that we do, and it's kind of very different. They're all they're amazing, really, with their technical knowledge that I do not have. I really don't. But I bring what I bring to the table, and it seems to mesh. It seems to work. So I'm very, very grateful for that.
That's the only way it works. Each person contributes his or her own strengths, right? So
Yes.
I think that's wonderful. Now, I know that you spearheaded a very, very important documentary recently, correct? Could you
Yes.
tell us a little bit more about that, and what do you feel was your most important takeaway from that work that you just did?
Well, so I've been, covering local news in Chelmsford. I have my local news show, and in researching the stories that I was going to cover for the news, I would frequently come across stories, and I would cover them. Stories about what was going on with the Merrimack River, how it was considered an endangered river, a troubled river, and there were different reasons for that. It was trash pollution and needles, and there was some chemical contamination and what's called these combined sewer overflows. And I realized that most of the time when I would read about these problems in the newspaper or see these television articles, they were all uncovering one aspect of what was going on with the river. And I know that there's a lot of constraints with TV stories, right? There's time constraints, and with articles, you've got space constraints. And I thought, well, I don't have constraints. I can kind of do whatever I feel is necessary to get the story covered. And so that was why I thought, all right, well, let me go and get started. And I had mentioned this to you before. There were so many people, it was really amazing, that gave me access to their expertise. I'm very, very grateful to that, because I think that really, with a documentary, you need your credibility, and it's not about what I'm thinking, it's what these people who are experts, what their knowledge, they're sharing their knowledge.
The Merrimack River is a magnificent asset to the Newburyport community, as well as so many of the communities upriver.
If you live in Lowell, and like Lawrence or Haverhill, you live in one of these communities, you're drawn to the river.
I found a passion for the river. I fell in love with the river. I tried to move away several times, and the river always called me back.
And the bacterial levels were off the charts. I'm looking at this brown river. I'm like, what is going on? And that's when I first learned about CSOs, combined sewer overflows.
People are getting sick from the Merrimack River and the sewage that comes down.
In June, the month of June, there were 5
combined sewer overflows.
Certainly people are just revolted by the idea of thinking that you're taking raw sewage and dumping it into the river.
Whenever you have raw sewage going into a waterway where people are recreating and eventually drinking the water, some 600,000 people drinking the water, that to me is a pretty serious public health issue.
Municipalities cannot afford these investments alone. They are billions of dollars.
We found out in March of 2016 that we've been drinking contaminated water, PFAS, a certain class of chemicals. They've made their way into groundwater, surface water, and drinking water in Merrimack, New Hampshire.
Young kids down there fishing through that stuff that's going to get hurt. They're going to get hurt.
You need good, clean water. You need water to recreate in. You need water to drink.
Everyone's concerned with the river, right? That's not a partisan issue. The river's not a partisan issue. Well, everybody wants their drinking water to be clean.
The ultimate goal is to get the CSOs resolved, and so we don't have any more combined sewer overflow events.
This is what it takes. It takes everybody coming to the table and working together.
You need state partners, you need federal partners to help make sure that we're ensuring the quality of this river, the health of this river for generations to come.
And so I think that's the strength of this particular documentary. It's all of these people who have knowledge of different aspects of what's going on with the river, and they put it together in one piece.
Now, Dianne, if any of the ladies in the group wish to view this documentary, where would they go to access it?
So you can go to Chelmsford TV, our webpage, and it's right there. You can't miss it.
And it's Troubled Waters.
It's called Troubled Waters.
That's the title. And it's under an hour, correct? I believe it's around 39 minutes or so.
It's 39 minutes. And I deliberately made it under 40 minutes because I wanted to be a documentary short.
Okay.
And it takes a lot of video to make a documentary, and then it takes a lot of editing. And so I like to keep mine on the short side, and I think it's important to get your message out. You keep it on the short side, you prevent yourself from rambling, hopefully, and you get to the points that you need to make, and then that's it. So I was very deliberate with keeping it under 40 minutes.
That's right, just to distill it. Now, before we wrap things up, I'd like to ask about your art. I am just, oh my gosh, I was blown away by your art. Could you tell me more about that, when you started, what mediums you like to use, and are your favorite subjects horses? Do you paint other things?
So I actually haven't painted in a long time. So I did a lot of artwork when I was in high school. Of course it was horses because, you know, horses. And then when I had my daughter, she's almost 30 now, she's 29. So it was a long time ago. And, you know, painting, that's very toxic materials. And it just seemed to me it was time to put them away. And then, you know, life got in the way. And I was very busy with riding horses and reporting on things. But yeah, I used to do a lot of paintings and I would give them away to people. So I don't have an awful lot of paintings right now that I've done. But yeah, maybe at some point I'll pick up that paint again.
Yeah, pick up that paintbrush again. Because I too, that is why I gave up all the glazing all those years ago, because of that. Even though they are waterborne, what they call them, waterborne finishes, they're still very toxic. So that is why now I enjoy the mineral paints. And I know that you also enjoy good food. In fact, I finally got the delivery of those beans. It took over a month to get them.
Rancho Gordo beans.
Thank you so much. And they finally arrived 2 days ago. I had ordered them the next day when you had posted. That was a while ago. That's how long it took, how back ordered they was. So what are your favorite go-to dishes? I'm just curious. I have a feeling you have a few up your sleeve.
My favorite go-to. So I really, I really try to keep it healthy, right? And simple. And so my latest favorite thing is making grain bowls at home. And so, you know, some of those nice Rancho Gordo beans, the big Corona beans, the Christmas lima beans are excellent. Like if you think you hate lima beans, you want to try the Christmas limes because they're not like those things that your mother made you eat.
Okay, I'm making a
They're
note of
not like the
that.
things in the succotash at all.
Okay.
They're just this delicious chestnutty yumminess. And so with the, with the grain bowl, make a mix of grains. I have a bunch. But I like to mix several together, 2 or 3 grains together, have some of those nice beans, and some steamed veggies, so maybe some grilled chicken. And that just, I love that.
Oh, in fact, that's what I prepared because, as you know, we are 2 hours behind you, and I had prepared a salad in advance for my husband. And basically, I took some chickpeas, boiled eggs, just very little cheese, and outside there were a few little greens growing. As a little girl, my mother taught me to pick certain greens out of the yard, mix them in, and you have a healthy, quick, simple, delicious lunch. So we do that several times a week.
Yeah.
And the beans definitely do. I am so excited to try those beans.
Oh, definitely. And it's amazing. I'm making another order at Rancho Gordo. I got an email, so I know that there's going to be some meat shortages for the near future. And that's why I thought, well, if there's going to be meat shortages, it's likely going to be for quality beans like that also. And so, they're backward. They said I actually have a lot of stock, but they're so overwhelmed with orders recently that, so.
Yeah, because I know when I had gone online, just about everything had sold out. So I got what was available, but I am thrilled. And Dianne, I know nowadays most of us are indoors and doing a lot more online. Before this, I had never Zoomed. The only time I Zoomed was during elections or on the polls. That's when I Zoomed. Now it's like, oh my goodness. So a lot of us are doing online things, whether it's via Zoom, FaceTime, and whether it's with family or friends or church. What are your tips on how we can best present ourselves online?
Well, some are very simple. Actually, most of them are very simple. So I have ordered, it was back ordered, but I should get it the next day or so, a light for the front of my computer. Because you see, I've got some side light, but I need a little extra front light. And so I think making sure you're properly lit is one thing. And then the other thing is having some headphones and plugging them in and muting yourself. And then that way, if there's a dog barking or if there's a lot of noise, especially if it's a busy meeting, you're not distracting everybody if you're typing.
Good point.
You're not distracting everybody with those noises that you're making.
Right, right. Which is what happens here because I am set up in my dining area and I do have 2 little dogs. And you're right. Okay, that's a very good tip.
Yeah.
Thank you.
One of my favorites is actually my background. If I move around a lot, you can tell it's a fake background.
That's your virtual, right? Your virtual.
It's my virtual background. And it's funny, it's a very similar brick to what we actually have in here. But I don't know about you, but I'm so distracted by people's backgrounds. And so I think it can be really distracting, and it kind of distracts from the message that you're trying to send out.
That's another good tip.
So a background that you have chosen, and then it's consistent, and then you're not having people kind of thinking, what is the name of that book? It's what I do. I'm like, you're reading what? And then the other thing, and probably the most important thing, is an awareness that people can see you. So we're all familiar with hot mic moments when people forget that they have microphones on. And so you keep hearing on the news about, hot mic moments, except you're on camera. People can see what you are doing. That's very important.
That is a very good point. Exactly. Now, getting back to the virtual background, this is why I've been hesitant, because for you, it looks absolutely lovely. It looks like there is a brick wall behind you. I have seen with certain individuals that when they do move their head,
it's not perfect.
Okay, so then it does happen. So basically, the rule is to stay as steady as possible.
I think so. I'm very aware you know, if I move, then it.
Oh, there
kinda
you go.
looks-
Okay, now, just when you
Yeah.
did that on purpose, I saw
Right.
it with your
See,
hands.
it looks kind of,
Okay.
it looks kind of weird. And the other thing is, if my husband were to walk in right now, you wouldn't be able to see him behind me.
Okay, so something to take note, ladies, is
Yeah.
to look into the virtual backgrounds. Before I let you go, Dianne, any last minute tips? But more importantly, what are you seeing briefly, the shifts that have been occurring with this pandemic as far as the news is concerned, or anything else that you wish to share with us?
Well, it's amazing to me how a pandemic can be polarized, but people are very, very polarized, and misinformation is really running rampant. It's really, really out there. And also there are scams out there. There are people who know that there's a lot of need for money and that people are getting money and they want to get it from you. They want to take it from you. And I've seen so many emails coming to me and it's like, oh, that's a scam and that's a scam. So I think, you know, we can fight that. Each one of us can fight that, you know, so drilling down with any information that you get, really any information that you get to determine the validity is very, very important. Whether you're just trying to inform yourself on what you need to do personally, you know, the wearing of the mask and how much, you know, I stay home. I really stay home. You know, my husband kind of gets a little bit stir crazy, and he's also not as concerned as I am. But he does. He wears a mask and he takes precautions. I stay home. I can work at home. I can work out at home. I have a very tiny little yard that I can go out in. And I did go and get some B-roll the other day. I actually stayed in my car. I got my B-roll from my car.
That's okay. That's okay. That's what we do. And we are so fortunate because we can have so much delivered to our homes now.
Really? Yes.
So we are, for those of us who are in those type of areas, obviously not everyone is as fortunate, but many of us are. But you're right, wearing that mask, it's a very tiny sacrifice to make.
Yeah, I'm surprised at, you know, so here in Massachusetts, a few days ago, it went from just a suggestion to really an order. So Charlie Baker made it an order that if you're going to go out in public, you need to wear a mask. And I was kind of in disbelief at the level of anger. I mean, I don't like it. It fogs up my glasses. It's hard to breathe. I mean, but it's something that we do for other people.
For the greater
it's something
good.
We do for the greater good.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I think again that if you really work on getting your accurate information, vet the information sources that you use, then I think it's easier to do what needs to be done.
Indeed. Dianne, thank you so much for your time. We so enjoyed getting to know you.
Thank you. I mean, I really thought, you moved away and I was like, I'll never see you again.
Oh,
and so it's so nice to be able to keep communicating and connecting because, I didn't know you for very long, right? So I started working at Chelmsford Child Media and you were there. I was like, oh, Onorina's great. And then you needed to go. And so I'm so happy to be able to keep in touch.
I am honored. Thank you, Dianne. But this was just much fun.
Very fun. Very, very fun.
Thank you. And I will see you on Facebook.
All right.
Thank you again. Have a beautiful day.
You too.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.